Welcome to the Rice Field Archive. This time we return to a Vietnamese folk tale, the legend of Ba Be Lake, where an entire village gathers to worship the Buddha, or, more accurately, to bargain with him for a little good fortune. Then, a starving beggar arrives and puts their devotion to the test, and so the legend begins. Long ago, the village of Nam Mẫu held a great Buddhist festival known as an Unrestricted Assembly. People came from far and wide to attend. During the several days of the festival, everyone ate vegetarian food, recited prayers to the Buddha, and performed acts of charity, such as releasing fish and birds in the hope of earning blessings. One day, an old beggar woman appeared among the crowd. No one knew where she had come from. She was a dreadful sight. The tattered scraps of cloth hanging from her body could scarcely cover her skeletal, sore-ridden frame, and a foul stench rose from her. Wherever she went, she pleaded in a weak voice, "I am starving, good ladies and gentlemen." Holding out a basket, she begged on every side with an imploring look. Yet, by late afternoon, the woman had still received nothing. Everywhere she went, she was driven away. The young people, especially the girls, complained that she smelled so badly they had to flee as though escaping a plague. Whenever they saw her approaching, they pushed one another aside and hurried elsewhere. Even the women performing their devotions became furious. They stopped chanting homage to the Buddha, turned around, and cursed the beggar for daring to come near them. At last, the village authorities ordered the watchmen to expel her. Unable to withstand the rain of blows from their staves, she was forced to leave the festival. After being driven out, the woman wandered miserably into the village. Just as at the festival, every household regarded her with disgust and sent her away. The wealthier families slammed their doors shut and released their dogs upon her. Fortunately, at a crossroads, she met a widow and her daughter returning from the market. Taking pity on the old beggar, the mother brought her home and gave her some cold rice to eat. Late that night, while the mother and daughter were asleep, the woman came knocking once more. She asked to stay for the night, saying that everyone else had barred their doors against her. The mother and daughter gladly welcomed her inside. They gave her food and spread a mat over a heap of straw where she could rest while they lay together in another part of the house. As soon as the woman fell asleep, she began to snore like thunder. When the mother and daughter looked over, they saw the heap of straw glowing brightly in the darkness. Lying there was no longer a frail, sore-covered beggar woman, but an enormous water dragon, coiled tightly upon itself, its head resting on the roof beam and its tail hanging down to the ground. The mother trembled with terror, but their home stood apart from the rest of the village, and there was no one she could call for help. She could only pull the blanket over herself and leave their fate to chance. By the following morning, however, when she dared to look again, the water dragon had vanished. The old beggar was sitting upon the straw, awake and preparing to leave. Before saying farewell, she suddenly spoke. "They claim to worship the Buddha, but in truth, they are merely bargaining with him, performing acts of piety only to purchase blessings for themselves. They deserve to sink into suffering. Only you and your daughter are truly kind-hearted. Take this packet of ashes, scatter them around your home, and stay awake tonight. Do not go anywhere, but if you must leave, climb together to the top of the highest mountain." The mother hesitantly asked, "But how can we save everyone else?" The woman remained silent for a long while. Then she reached into her clothes, took out a grain of rice, split its husk into 2 halves, and handed them to the mother and daughter. "These 2 pieces of husk will help you perform a good deed." Before the mother could ask anything more, She looked up and found that the woman had disappeared. The mother and daughter quickly followed her instructions, then went to tell their neighbors what had happened. But the villagers merely smiled and dismissed it as a foolish tale. Sure enough, that evening, while the festival was at its height and men and women were busily bowing and praying, a jet of water suddenly burst from the ground in the very center of the ceremonial platform. The water surged higher and higher, gradually washing away the surrounding earth. The people stared in astonishment, unable to understand what was happening. Believing it to be a miraculous sign from the Buddha, they bowed even more fervently. But the torrent grew ever stronger, swallowing people, animals, and possessions alike. In the blink of an eye, the water had spread into a vast pond. At last, the people panicked. Abandoning their prayers, they tried to flee, but escape was no longer possible. The earth cracked beneath their feet and shook so violently that everyone was thrown to the ground. Suddenly, a deafening roar erupted. The land, the rocks, the houses, the people, and the animals all sank beneath the flood as water sprayed high into the sky. An enormous water dragon rose from the surface and flew in circles above Nam Mẫu. Meanwhile, the floor of the charitable widow's house, together with her pigsty and chicken coop, rose higher and higher, always remaining above the rising water. Heartbroken by the disaster, the mother and daughter took out the two halves of rice husk. The moment they placed them upon the water, the husks transformed into two boats. Despite the wind and rain, they rowed in every direction, rescuing as many victims as they could. The sunken land eventually became what is now Babay Lake in Bắc Kạn. The raised ground where the widow's house once stood remains as a small island in the middle of the lake, known by the local people as Pò Già Mải. And so ends the legend of Babay Lake. The villagers tried to bargain for blessings, but it was a simple act of kindness that saved lives. If you enjoyed this story, please consider subscribing for more Vietnamese folk tales, myths, literature, and forgotten stories. Thank you for listening.